Our friends over in France seemingly broke the news that UFC Noche at the Sphere, we got Sugar Sean O'Malley versus Merab. Also, Ilia Topuria versus the best is blessed Max Holloway. Our friend of the program, or actually enemy of the program, Ariel Helwani came out today and said that is fake news. Which one is it? So he's claiming that Sugar Sean O'Malley versus Merab will be headlining the Sphere. And then the following pay-per-view, UFC 307 in Salt Lake City, that'll be Ilia versus Max. People were getting very, very excited, and I think running with the news of those two title fights being on the same card, especially for a fight like, UFC Noche. It seems like they're going to go kind of all out for it. So, Justin, I know Ariel is shutting that down right now, and we'll go get more into what he has to say about the outlook of the rest of the year for the UFC pay-per-views. But tell me you don't want to see Max Holloway, Ilia Topuria, Sugar Sean, Merab, the midget, Dvalishvili, however you say it. I mean, the UFC has to do those two fights, those two title fights on the same card, no?
I mean, dude, when you hear Dana talk about UFC Noche 306, he's making it seem like it's going to be the greatest event. He said the greatest live sporting event of all time.
Which he said like 4 times already this year. Let's note that. Every pay-per-view. It's hard being a UFC fan. Every time I'm trying to explain to like my mom this card, I'm like, it's like the best card ever. She's like, you say that every weekend, you loser. Like, find something else to like.
My girlfriend says the same thing. I'm like, dude, this
It's
is one of the biggest fights of the year.
When I was explaining Alex versus Yuri, everyone's like, dude, you said this at 300. That was too much. I was like, no, this is different. Well, it's actually like the same thing, but you wouldn't understand. But yes, Dana is saying the greatest production. He said he's hiring guys with Emmys, Oscars to run this shit at the Sphere. But sorry to interrupt. Go on.
No, so like, yeah, he's hyping the event up almost as much as he's hyping up John Jones. We have to give him that credit. But dude, both of these fights are arguably the biggest fights of the year. Like when you talk about like we said, when it's a high level like champion versus challenger, like sometimes you'll have these matches where, I mean, what's a recent example that we've had of a huge champion favorite? I'm trying to think, like, I don't know. Well, when Izzy was going in to fight Strickland, he was a huge favorite, but we won't use that as an example. But we have these kind of one-sided title matches where majority of the time you know who's going to win. They're a huge favorite in Vegas and things like that. These are both maybe the biggest fights of the year when you talk about true MMA skills, who's going to execute their game plan type of fights. And I would love for him to be on UFC Noche because the sooner the better. You never know what's going to happen in this sport with pullouts in different situations. But our guy Ariel Helwani over there, he's
the rat.
He's reaching our level of he's reaching our level of journalism. You know what I mean?
I think he finally beat us last. We've been neck and neck these last couple of weeks. He did inch ahead of us last week, but we're right back in there. So. He can go.
He seems to have a little weasel inside this UFC organization, and I really don't know who, because Dana and anybody in the big little tree of like Hunter Campbell, they're probably so scared to leak something to Ariel and Dana find out that I just can't see those guys doing it. So it's got to be somebody in the UFC like PR team or someone like that just has a little. Maybe Ariel throws them a little, a little dough on the side, but he seems to be pretty spot on with all his predictions or as to what's going on. I mean, he was dead to right on the Conor situation.
That makes two of us. I think we were on the front lines, him and us.
Without leaking the injury, he was pretty much dead to right. So I don't think he's wrong with saying that it's going to be. I think Dana's kind of like Merab and Sean have also hinted that they're going to be headlining this event. I think it makes sense. I don't think we'll see, especially a guy like Ilia and Max, because I think Max might get pay-per-view points without being a champion because he, as the BMF and the fan favorite he is. This is too expensive of an event for the UFC to have, like, because at one point I was telling you, I was like, oh well, maybe they try and throw Conor on here, but it's like no chance they're throwing Conor Conor on this event. It's too expensive of an event. They can't pay all these fighters and profit anything pretty much off the event. So don't think we'll see that, but I think we see Merab versus Sugar Show for the belt, and probably Alexa Grasso defend her title against like a Shevchenko.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
I'm sure they throw on a bunch of like some Mexican fighters, a bunch of entertaining fights. Because now with the Saudis being involved, what's his name, Turka Al-Ashili or whatever, he was like he was very adamant on he wanted to see more women's fights when he had the event at and Dana's gonna want to please him as he's a huge dough guy. So I think we'll see multiple women fights on that card, along with at least 2 title fights for sure.
Yeah, that was fun when he said that during the UFC Saudi Arabia. Like that was like earth-shattering news. Everyone was like, is he being serious? Like he wants women? And that I didn't even notice that card was literally all dudes, as it should be. No, I can't say that. But even if we don't see Max versus Ilia on that card, it'll still be like a pretty stacked out card. And I really don't know how fights are going to work in that arena. Like I see all these clips now from Dead & Co. Not sure if you're a Deadhead, but see a lot of clips now of like concerts there, and it looks like the coolest thing ever. But how are they going to pull off like UFC fights there? I have no idea. I'm very curious to see. Like it'll be cool regardless, like just because of the atmosphere and ambiance, but like that's going to be a weird thing to pull off. But you've seen videos from the Sphere, right? You've seen the inside.
Yeah.
I guess it's just going to be like because it's just one-sided, which I don't think has the UFC ever done a fight in a arena like that. I don't think so.
Maybe back in the day.
It seems to have like you could just put it on the screen, I guess, so people will be able to see. But like it does not look like when this originally got announced months and months ago, I was like, there's no way they're going to pull this off. Shout out. I mean, the UFC is always doing crazy stuff like that, and that's why everyone loves it. So I think it'll look cool regardless, but it's going to be very, very weird to pull off. First thoughts. What are your first thoughts? Oh, also another thing I saw, I don't think that like a leak this big, like could be real. The only time I remember was John Jones versus Ciryl Gane when Jones was making his return. Do you remember that got leaked? Like the poster came out before they announced it.
Yeah,
and
T-Mobile Arena accidentally put it on their like event screen.
And it was like the week of the announcement, and it was just up there, I think, for like, probably a couple minutes till someone realized. But like, I remember that going very viral because you weren't really hearing. That was when like Francis had left, and then you didn't know what was going to happen. And then John Jones made his miraculous return right as Francis left. A lot to think about there. But
dominant performance. Dominant.
Versus Ciryl Gane and now he's fighting Volkov. So I guess he's done recording the Minions movie or whatever the fuck he was doing. They're saying Ilia on Independence Day, a guy from Spain, should not be fighting on Mexican Independence Day. Obviously, I'm no scientist. I guess there's some beef between Mexico and Spain, but we'll leave that one be. But I wanted to ask you, what O'Malley versus Merab, what are your initial thoughts on that one? Obviously, still a ways away, but how do you see that fight playing out?
Yeah, so I was just talking to one of my buddies about that fight actually, and I said to him before I can come on here and give a true prediction, I got to go back and watch some Merab tape just from a striking standpoint. I know we all know what Merab's capable of, grappling and wrestling and getting the takedowns, but I don't know if he has things in the tool bag to close the distance on Sean. Sean, like this could end up being a very boring fight, to be honest with you. Like,
yeah,
I could see Sean staying on the outside. I mean, he's absolutely going to stay on the outside and try and win this fight strategically, like he did the last one. But I think Merab seeing one of his best friends and teammate get sparked like that with that counter, like I don't think he's gonna go in there and just do what he's always done, where he just forces takedowns. But it's like, it's so weird because if he gets a hold of Sean, I think he ragdolls him. But dude, Sean makes all these guys look so small in the division. It's like
so small,
dude. So I don't know. I need to go back and watch a little bit of tape on Merab striking, and obviously we're gonna put out the biggest balling and brawling pay-per-view episode for that one.
We're
UFC
bringing in
Noche.
Emmy award winners. Will be editing that episode, so it'll be special.
What's your early take on it?
Dude, but what are you going to find out in Merab? I agree. I always say that, right? Like, I do need even before we break down these fights in a couple weeks, like, I want to rewatch some Aspinall film. I want to rewatch more so like Leon and Bilal. But, like, dude, what are you going to find out from Merab tape? Like, I feel like we know what we're getting with that guy. Like, he's been cracked. Henry Cejudo cracked him. You remember people forget about Marlon Moraes. Like, that's one of the all-time you always see on, like, best comebacks in UFC.
Yeah.
Like, the ref could have stopped it. Merab clearly is an Iron Man. The guy's got, according to Colby Covington, he's got 2 lungs. Like, the guy maybe has the best cardio in the UFC. The Peter Yan fight, the biggest fucking most despicable thing I've ever seen. The guy didn't have Yan in trouble once, but he 50-45'd him, 50-44'd him without even he's just a constant pace. He's in your face 24/7. He's one of the more unique fighters we've ever seen. But we've seen him get hurt really bad against Moraes. I don't know how bad Cejudo hurt him, but like he definitely cracked him. And then what do we saw? We saw Henry Cejudo get ragdolled, which is something that despite age, time off, I don't think anyone ever thought that was going to happen. We saw Aljo take him down, but, Merab picked him up and carried him across the octagon. So I don't know. O'Malley, though, I think despite he got popular so fast. And then with that Aljo knockout, people were like, oh, maybe he isn't as good as he has all this star power, but maybe he isn't that good still. I think the Cheeto fight kind of shut everyone up. He's as good of a striker as we have in the UFC right now. He could not be bigger. He's the biggest bantamweight. Like, there is nobody taller, longer, more rangy than him. And Merab is on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. That's a little fella, dude. That's a small bantamweight. So he's going to have a hard time getting inside. He's been fine charging forward at these guys. He's had a lot of favorable, I remember when he fought Yan, he was a big underdog, but bro, Yan is not going to I don't know. Well, he didn't do anything. That was the weirdest fight I've ever seen. But against a guy like O'Malley, who can off his back foot counter strike, I don't know. Merab's going to be in trouble, I think, marching forward. I think this fight's a lot closer than maybe I thought when you asked me a couple months ago. When Sugar was fighting Cheeto, we both thought, that's not a great fight. But Merab is maybe the best bantamweight right now. I don't know. I feel like Sugar's really grown on me these last couple of years. I mean, I've liked his personality. I'm not saying that. But as a fighter, I think he is very high level. And we haven't even seen him on the ground. Aljo came in there and the fight didn't last very long, but he couldn't get him on the ground. And that fight lasted 6 minutes. So he's not going to have all this info to tell his buddy Merab. But how funny would it be if Sugar knocks out Aljo and Merab? That would be tough for the boys up in Rochester, New York, or wherever those guys are. But yeah, I don't know. I'm very excited for it. I'm not going to make a prediction right now, but I don't know. It's very, very intriguing matchup. And I agree with you. I think it could be kind of a snooze fest. So, hopefully you didn't buy tickets to the Sphere. Go see Dead & Co. instead. But another fight. So regardless of if it's on the same card or not, it seems to be confirmed now. Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway, the fight we all really, really wanted. I think after Ilya Volk, it seemed like they were going to do the rematch. I really felt like they were for a while. I think we kind of forgot about Max. He was going to move up. It was a massive, massive fight on UFC 300. BMF belt versus Justin Gaethje. And Justin Gaethje was a big favorite. We were all kind of looking past Max, not just in that fight, but, in this 145 title picture, it was okay, he said he was going to move up forever. He finally did. He lost to Volk 3 times. So we kind of forgot about him, right? All of a sudden, with that performance, maybe the best knockout in the history of the sport, Then he was kind of ready to call his shot, and he called out the Matador. He said there's a bull in the ring, and the Matador wants no part. And he had been calling out Ilia for a while because Max was in that number one contender purgatory where he was just knocking off the contenders. But then again, we thought it would be Volk. Nobody wanted that, so I could not be more happy that they're making this fight. It seemed like it was going to happen. It was inevitable these last couple months. But what are your first thoughts on this fight? I could not be more excited for this. Clearly, I'm yapping, but what do you think of this one, man? How do you see this playing out? And just like, I don't know, talk to me about this one.
From what I can see, looking out the rest of the year, this is my biggest fight of the year. I've seen both these guys live in person, both great elite fighters of the sport. But I'm gonna say it. I think Ilia is just different, dude. I think this is a guy that I don't see really losing unless it's via kind of a flash KO or something like that. I think he just has power that's unmatched at this weight class, unmatched. And I think whether he knocks out Max or not, I think he'll do enough damage over 5 rounds to probably pull this one out. We'll see. I think, I've picked against Max multiple times, just like his last fight against Gaethje. I thought Gaethje was going to be too powerful for him. Moving up a weight class, he proved me wrong. But man, I just think Ilia is a different level of fighter. I think we haven't even really seen the fact that this dude can grapple, wrestle, grapple, all of it. I think he's a complete fighter. I think he's much stronger than a lot of the guys at this weight class. And it's just tough when you have a lot of guys Max just knocked out Gaethje, but we all know Max is a point fighter. He's not a knockout artist. Korean Zombie. I mean, my sister could probably hurt Korean Zombie at this point.
In your head.
So I'm not here acting as if Max is some knockout artist. I think Ilia potentially finds the chin. I kind of hope not. I don't want Max to go out that way, but I think Ilia will be too much for just about anybody in this division. What's your early take on this fight?
Yeah, dude, I'm seeing a lot ever since the Gaethje knockout of these revisionist historians being like, oh, I thought Max had, what happened to Pillow Fists? I thought Max had no power. And then it's just because he clipped Gaethje multiple times. Obviously, the knockout at the end will live in everyone's head. But and also people are making that out. I saw that was fight of the year through halfway. That was not it would have been 49-46. I think it was 4-1. Gaethje won the fourth, but Holloway cracked. That was not the closest fight. So I don't know why people are making it seem like it was. But my point, he rocked him multiple times, and then the zombie knockout, and Arnold Allen, he dropped at the end of that fight. So I'll see these clips on Twitter of those 3 fights, and it's I thought he had no power, pillow fist, yada, yada, yada. It's you're cherry picking. The Gaethje fight was crazy, and he looked perfect that night. Oh, is he back in his prime? I keep fucking rambling, dude. So many people just talk out of their ass. But yeah, he knocked out Zombie. Dude, Zombie was sprinting at him. That was his retirement fight. He did not give a fuck. He was flying in there.
Zombie could have retired about 8 years ago as well.
I think Volk retired him. Do you remember that beat down, dude?
I don't understand how that fight got made, dude.
That was it was a weird time because he had beat Holloway. He was supposed to fight someone else. I think they were talking Holloway 3, and then maybe Max was hurt, so they just kind of wanted to give Zombie a shot. But that was one of the biggest skill wise mismatches in title fight history for sure. But yeah, so we're not going to act like Max has this knockout power. Even so, he rocked Gaethje, but it took literally for 1 second left for him to get him out of there. And you could, he knocked out Zombie. Who else has he finished? So we're not going to act like he all of a sudden this late in his career has grown some magical power. Ilia Topuria, on the other hand, has about as much power as a person can possibly have, especially in that 145 division, dude. He puts people's lights out. Every knockout of this guy is vicious. There's no follow-up shots. other than what's his name? Who did he? The Ryan Hall fight, which is like one of the funniest fights ever. You were at that was McGregor, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And that was in peak Rogan where he's like, Ryan Hall is a wizard. He's like, oh, he's walking right into his trap. He's so, and then it's like, whoa, he's knocked out. But yeah, I'm blanking on the guy's name that who'd he get head kicked?
What's his name? I know
Light skinned fella.
Yeah.
Not Woodson. I'm blank. Jai Herbert. Jai Herbert. Yeah,
or something like that. Jay Herbert or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, he gets his face kicked off a minute into the fight. He survives, and then he comes and he brutally knocks him out. And you know the one I'm talking about with the body shot that he rips to the body, and then the guy just like literally lets him knock. He like just shells up, and you see it in slow motion. How he probably just cracked all his ribs. Dude's got crazy power.
You remember when they wanted Bryce Mitchell versus Topuria for the longest? They were like, they thought Mitchell was like one of the best prospects in the sport,
dude. And then he got what did they call him? Country Khabib for a while, and then he got the brakes beaten off him, dude. You remember that fight? And then he subbed him. Like I think that was just like a pity sub almost. He's like, oh, let me beat you at your own game because he cracked him, dude. He cracks everyone. And we don't have to go into the Josh Emmett fight, one of the biggest beatdowns we've ever seen. I think we saw a 10-7 in that fight, which, again, I don't know if that's ever happened. Was it a real 10-7? I don't know. Multiple 10-8 scorecards or rounds, rather. Whoosh. That was a beatdown. But I don't know. We sat here a couple months ago. I was going to pick Gaethje. And I literally couldn't get it. We spoke right before I said I was picking Gaethje. While saying it, I was like, dude, I just can't see Holloway's chin getting cracked. I'm switching my pick. I'm going with Holloway. Predicted Holloway 5th round knockout and gets knocked down for the first time. It was pretty awesome. But, dude, I don't know. I don't really know how to predict this fight. I'm excited to do a little more research. Hopefully have a better answer here in a couple months. But I don't think I will, man. I think this is going to be a toss-up. As a Holloway fan, it definitely, it would very much hurt to see that chin go. But will it ever happen? I don't know. I think after these last couple fights, his resurgence again is just so fun to watch. I think, like I said, y'all must have forgot. We kind of forgot how good this guy was, and then he just puts on an all-around masterclass against Justin Gaethje, who's a very high-level fighter, a weight class up. So, I don't know, man. One thing I will say, Volk Max 3, talk about title fight beatdowns. About 2 minutes into that fight, Volk cracked Max, and he was talking his talk. He said, I'm too fast. 2 minutes into the fight, and then for the remaining 23 minutes, he was proving himself right. He was way, way, way faster than Max Holloway on that night. A couple months ago, we saw Volk versus Ilia, and we were saying the same thing, but about Ilia. You could tell very early on, just the way they were throwing. I said, Ilia is like way faster, dude. So again, as much as Volk and his fans want to pretend like that was a flash KO and it was like very close, he just got flatlined. And like, if you watch that fight back, Ilia was setting him up and then he found his shot and he put his lights out. So I don't know, man. I know people are going to say MMA math. I'm not saying MMA math. I'm just saying that I think Ilia is going to be the faster guy. I don't know. I'm excited to look a little deeper into this fight, but whoosh. Imagine if Ilia in back-to-back fights cracks Volk and cracks Max. What do you even – he's probably going to move up. Maybe Sugar moves up to fight him. There is not a lot going on in that 45 weight class, dude. So I don't know what you do.
And it's like for the division, it's just like I honestly think like Max is by far the biggest threat to Ilia. Like I don't know if anybody else like –
Oh, yeah.
I think we're looking at Ilia is like a 5-1 favorite over just about everybody else in the division, if not more. Like
he's going to fight Masvidal. Like Diego Lopez has all this hype. Brian Ortega. Like I guess Masvidal is now he's saying he wants to fight Diego Lopez again, which I guess kind of makes sense. Diego's got a little bit of a hype around him right now, but like, dude, that's what after Volk Ilia, like because Max was moving up, like his name wasn't really in the conversation. We were like, dude, who is this guy going to fight? Like, after doing that to Volk, who do you possibly throw this guy in with? That's why we were like, oh, maybe the rematch, it doesn't make sense. I really don't want to see it, but like, there is nobody else. Income Max Holloway. We'll see what happens, but like, dude, that is not a division with like a ton of killers in it, like maybe we were saying a year or two ago. It looks a lot differently now at the top. There are a lot of guys who need to prove themselves before they could take a shot at the El Matador.